Thank you for joining. Last session of today, right, has been hopefully a very productive and informative and fun day. Obviously, a lot of people here in this beautiful building with a lot of history. As you know, like a lot of movies have been made about the history of this, which we are not talking about. Yeah, we are talking about the crazy industry we are in here. Yeah, constantly things are happening, things are changing, and I guess all of us can learn from this ever fast-moving things that are happening. And I'm happy to be here with Ayse and Markus from N26 and Trade Republic. My name is Pan. I'm from Remerge, and what we are going to talk about today is exactly like the experience. Specifically around all the privacy changes with fewer signals, new frameworks that have happened specifically like since the launch of Apple's ATT framework, like what are best practices, what can be done, how it changed like in terms of technology stack and getting like still good results. So that's what we are going to talk about today, and also look into the future with Android Sandbox and what that actually means and looks like. But let's kick it off maybe first with a short round of introduction, giving the background. Ayse, maybe you want to start?
Yeah, I can start. I'm Ayse. I'm the Senior Product Manager for MarTech at N26. So I will be giving a more perspective from a more technical side within this panel. So, yeah.
And I'm Markus. Nice to meet everyone in this room. I'm leading the paid marketing efforts at Trade Republic. Are you sure? Are you familiar with Trade Republic as a service? We are an online investment savings platform. You can invest into different financial products through Trade Republic, if there's stocks, ETFs, or whatsoever. I'm running the paid marketing efforts there for roughly 2 years now. Before that, I was working in Delivery Hero for 8 years. So in total, I'm in this industry for 11, 12 years already. I was also working at eBay, Axel Springer, and so on. And also working with Remerge in the past very successfully.
Yeah, that's also the reason why you are so successful and have grown in your career, right? Always showing proof of good performance. And I think like that's a very good start, like the whole history and then being there and understanding like what has changed. Maybe Markus, you can just like take the first question here, and when we look about iOS specifically and how it was maybe pre-ATT and what has changed during the journey. During ATT and maybe the setup right now where you feel comfortable with that it's working, very scalable, very good, and you feel confident with that. So how has it been?
Yeah, maybe let me try to structure this on a sort of timeline. When ATT hit, I would call hit us, actually, it was not so unexpected. I mean, there were rumors about it for quite some time. All of that, but we also did the necessary preparation to it. But in the beginning, when it was released, I was in a different company. I was still in Delivery Hero, and I think what we tried to do was kind of sustain what we had before. So before, I think Word for online marketeers was very easy. Attribution was working fine. You just looked into that one tool, into that one report, and all the numbers were there. What we tried to do is to sustain that. We tried to implement modeling solutions that would sustain patch, basically, attribution, which was very complex, of course. So it was basically also a huge requirement on our tech stack. We needed to have a big data team to sustain all of that, to keep the modeling in check. And when I changed then to Trade Republic, I thought like, okay, in Trade Republic, I don't have the resources. I cannot do the same as I did in Delivery Hero. So we went quite lean on the attribution side. And what I mean by that is we mainly focused on what the MMPs provide. So of course, the SKA network, we tried to keep that in check. We tried to do our homework on that one. We're leveraging the modeling solutions, for example, our measurement partner Adjust provides in order to make sense of the iOS data. And then we try to keep the adjust data set as clean as possible. Having that said, we try to, of course, keep attribution as one information source around. But what we did and what we majorly focused on was testing. So next to attribution, we doubled down on implementing testing tools, if it is incrementality measurement, if it is tools that we use for incrementality measurement, pipelines to feed data into, for example, tools like or platforms like Facebook, Google, in order to still run incrementality measurement and all of that. But next to that, I think overall, in order to maybe to wrap it up, what I can give you as a recommendation is we try to have different data sets that we use for decision making. And in the end, this is what it's about, no? Like you want to take a decision, a well-informed decision. You will never make the ultimate decision. It has never been like this, also not with attribution. It was more complex, or still more complex on the marketing side. But what we try to do is make decisions. So we have attribution, we have a testing data set, but we also look a lot into brand measurement, for example, that complements a little bit the picture. But also what is important for us, and maybe we come to that later on, is the overall potential. So the overall potential a channel has, for example. So we know, for example, it's super important for us to be on Google, to be on Facebook, because it just reached 90% of the internet population in the markets we're in. So we cannot skip that, for example. So in short, we have 4 data sets that we are looking at. In the end, we try to make a decision based on all of them. What's our ultimate goal is to somehow simplify the complexity and put all of these data sets, the information that data sets give us, into one single view. And this is, of course, something that we are not there at, but is our ultimate goal.
So, okay, this is the lean setup. Everybody can do as a one-man show, kind of, right? If you don't have the resources from Delivery Hero. Now, Ayse, maybe you can add, like, also from a more product perspective, and we go a little bit deeper on what Markus has said to understand that maybe a bit more in practicality. But maybe from your view and just like going through that history, okay, less signals and how you're covering from your approach the topic.
I mean, my story is extremely similar to how Markus described his story. It was extremely similar. I was also working in a different company. I was working for Procter & Gamble in Turkey market, and I was managing 3 mobile applications at a time that were built locally to promote promotions within the market. On the time that ATT got released as being like managing all those 3 products from the IT side, we needed to change our direction more into a more transparent way, building our own, let's say, new screens, new user interfaces within all those apps, and then redirecting customers in order to have them accepting in a way that we are more transparent to them. So the apps that I was owning, they were more health-oriented. One period tracking app, and the other one was for Pampers rewards. And yeah, that's how we shaped it.
So you mean like specifically when you say how like transparent with what you're doing, it was also getting the consent like with that, right? Which was
and then like. Yeah, maybe the data size and the audience size got reduced a lot, but ultimately we started to use lookalike models to get more acquire more users to those apps. Yeah. So.
And did it like work out, or did it take some time in order to get there, or like?
We were also partnering with MMP providers, the same one. And yeah, it was all the time the same story, making all the data clean and neat in one platform, and then in a unified shape, and then using it to reiterate again and again. And it took time, of course. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. So we already knew that ATT was coming, of course. As a prep, we also tried to do our own internal solutions, like if the device IDs are going to get rid of in the whole overall picture, how we are gonna manage those. So we started to get into a little bit more on the contextual targeting. So using more the which is becoming way more popular also from the context of the web as well. So third-party cookies are going to be also dying. They are also dying by this year, actually. Contextual targeting was also another way that we approached to that problem.
So you were testing it and saw like already good results, because it's like still early, and I think specifically that's the big challenge if you compare it how the data and results were pre-ATT, right, with the normal standard way, and then you tap into new kind of techniques like contextual targeting. I guess that's tough to then show to the CFO. Oh yeah, the budget I'm spending is actually still a good idea to do right.
Yeah, you shouldn't expect it overnight that it's happening. Of course, it's a gradual thing, and like on the time it happened, it was a new industry thing, and then afterwards that it had to prove itself on its own.
Yeah. And we were covering like already, I think like what has been also discussed today in different other sessions is also getting like the better transparency in terms of incrementality. You were measuring it, you were mentioning it, just like maybe also how that became maybe a more integral part in your strategy and your approach. Marcus, you want to get a bit deeper on that and how it works?
Sure. So first of all, about incrementality, I think it's most probably the biggest buzzword out there since a while. Everybody wants to do it. Everybody approaches it somehow. Look, I have my own opinion on that. I think it is totally needed, but you should take it always with caution. And why I'm saying that is you have different testing capabilities in the channels that you're running. And in many of the companies, you're running different channels such as paid social, if it's search, if it's influencer marketing, affiliate marketing. Affiliate marketing and influencer marketing already hard to incrementally test. So you stay with paid social and you stay with paid search, for example. That is something that you definitely need to mind. So before you start running into incrementality tests, what do I really want to figure out? And what do I want to use it for? We use it, of course, in two ways. We use it on a tactical level, but also on a strategic level. We're putting a bracket, nutshells maybe around affiliate and influencer marketing. When I talk about a tactical level, we even on the tactical level, for us, it's figuring out a creative, figuring out a campaign strategy or whatsoever. Still here in the tactical level, we try to keep it actionable and replicable. So what we want to do is, of course, we want to try to understand, okay, can we replicate that success? If we have, for example, an outstanding campaign, so just an example, we launched interest on our uninvested cash earlier this year, where we give 2%, now 4%, for example. This is for us more of a one-off campaign, for example. So this is something that we don't incrementality test. This is something that we just do because we know about the impact. But what we try to do is more in our always-on setup, try to incrementality prove what actually works in a simplified and replicable way. And when I talk about a strategic level, here, of course, it is about comparing channels against each other. So, for example, how much should I invest in YouTube? How much should I invest in Meta? And so on and so forth. That is a bit more complex, in my opinion, because you have different incrementality testing products. So you have the user level incrementality testing product, which is also inconsistent after ATT. You have eventually geo testing product, depends on your tech stack. This is what we invested in, but it also puts you in challenges because on a geo setup, you also need to have a significant change. Often, for example, for us, paid social and the paid search, they don't make that change in order to even reach significance on those tests. So this is challenges that I think you should be aware of before you start that, and you should actually figure out your goal. Also, what I can give you at hand is what we learned in all the testing is first be very clear about what you want to achieve. Keep the question very actionable, very simple, but also often you don't incrementality test the long-term impacts. And I think, in my opinion, marketing is more complex than just running an incrementality test, and that incrementality test giving you all the answers. I think back in the days it was attribution that gave you all the answers. Now people think it's incrementality test, but it's not. So, for example, my opinion on the whole marketing topic is, even though, for example, I think paid social, it's often a channel that's under scrutiny. It's not really efficient, it doesn't look good in your numbers and so on, but let's be honest. If you go into Instagram, if you go into TikTok and so on, every ad leads an impression. Every ad leads to an impression and a perception on the user side. So each of these touch points is important. So what I believe and what I should want to give you at hand is also think about this. Of course, in the budget allocation, that is a hard topic to defend against the CFO, for example. But think about that, think about this impact. And if you consider incrementality testing, also think about the long-term aspect. So for example, often some of the products allow you to incrementality test for 28 days. I don't think it's sufficient to do so in paid social. I would always go for the longest period that you can incrementality test. Maybe to give a little bit of learnings here is, what we did, I think it was last year, is we did a huge experiment across all of our countries, where we basically checked and incrementality tested all our setup with a geo-split test. And what we actually figured out, I think 3 weeks or 4 weeks in, incrementality was also kicking in. So the first 2 or 3 weeks, and our channel mix was very paid social heavy. So first 3 weeks, actually nothing happened. It was both of the groups, they were behaving equally. But then after the week 3 or 4, you saw all of a sudden, like the group that was exposed to paid social, paid search, taking a significant uplift. So this is something that I can give you at hand. When you incrementality test, think about the long-term aspect, and also think about the questions that you really want to answer, and keep them simple, actionable, and replicable.
I think those are like really good tips, because yeah, that's the thing. It's not as straightforward, and it can and it can be very different, yeah, from your strategy, from your app. And there are not so good, so many good tips and guidelines, I think, online, what you can just like take, and then it's all the time the same. So I think, like, yeah, thinking about it and going that through is very needed. But that's also, I think, like one of the reasons, because why it's so much in there. It's exactly, you're getting less signals. Attribution is not as as good anymore to just look at it. So yeah, that comes on top, and you have to combine everything. So yeah, it needs like some good, well thought through setup and how you are spending the budget, rather than just like, okay, shooting and yeah.
Yeah, also if I can add something, next to all the sophistication, I think incrementality testing, you can use tools for it. There are already tools around for it, and of course not on a geo level, but on a holistic level. Not to advertise any tool, but we are working, for example, with Incremental. It's a tool that offers this solution. We have an in-house solution that does actually the same thing. We have an in-house geo tool, but honestly speaking, if I look at some of our markets, you can also solve the problem just with easy and simple pre-post analysis. So it really depends, I think, on the scale of your business in all of the markets. But sometimes I don't think it needs a sophisticated tool to answer your questions. And the answer, or the questions that you want to answer is that what I'm doing actually making sense? Is that having an impact? Is that driving new customers to my business? And we often also use simple pre-post analysis.
Actually, you want to maybe add anything from your experience with that topic?
It was a great summary again from Mark's side. What I can say and add only is, like, it is, I mean, if you look at incremental testing, it is more around like simplified version of an A/B testing almost. So you need to have a really, as he describes, a proper objective before starting working on any incremental test scenario. And the road to success, I would say, again, with the core purpose, either geolocation or any other context difference, you need to do that incremental test with the core, like by having the core purpose at the mind. So I don't have anything else further to add his points.
I think one thing to add, I think the what I already mentioned earlier is like our objective is, for example, as marketeers, because as a marketer you also do stakeholder management. And as you said, you're talking to the CFO eventually, or to your CMO, and they want to see hard numbers. So it's often the stakeholder management, and what we are trying to do is, of course, in marketing measurement is very complex, very complex. And in order to talk to the CFO or to decision makers, you need to simplify it. And I think this is the biggest challenge nowadays, to do that with confidence. And when I can also give you one tip is, when you test with the objective of something. So what we try to do is we test with the objective to simplify also our day-to-day reporting. And what I mean by that, we try to, for example, bring together incrementality test and attribution, calibrate one against the other, and then also we try to bring together brand equity measurement with attribution again, to really figure out and give like one platform to also to the decision makers, but also to visualize basically impacts and trajectory of our performance.
Very good. On maybe just like as a small point, also for iOS and like the change or the experience with re-engagement, retargeting, as there are less signals. Ayse, maybe you have any ideas on retargeting?
For
how it changed?
Retargeting after the ATT world. Well. Obviously, as the natural outcome of ATT, we started to get less and less amount of data from the customers, because people started to reject, and we started to get we started to lose at least 80% of the data that we used to get from mobile ad IDs, right? Both from iOS and Android side. So it redirected both back in PNG and nowadays at N26. It redirected MarTech stack, what I am working on, and to collaborate more heavily with the data science teams, to build more extrapolation and then forecasting methods together, so that we can see, okay, we have the 5% of the data, but like if we reflect it onto the 80%, how should it look like, and then come up with a more generic and aggregated answer afterwards. And then coming up with the strategical decisions accordingly. So that was our main approach. But again, even in both two contexts, both for the PNG case as well as for the N26 case, the number of SKUs that we are selling to customers are not, they are more stable, and they are not as complex as D2C, I would say. Therefore, switching the strategy from really, really niche and imprecise targeting to a more generic and awareness-oriented targeting didn't have that much of an impact for the both two business cases, I would say. That would be my comment.
Okay, good. And now, we talked a lot about Apple, and then you saw already how it changed the strategy. Now, when you look with that experience and going through it, and then you heard already news, Google Sandbox happening and coming, how did it change maybe, or what is your expectation, and how would you approach it? And maybe you have already some ideas around it.
Again,
yes.
me.
Yeah, you can start.
So for App Privacy Sandbox, so it is going to be launched next year. It is not 100% clarified by Google yet. There are 3 different APIs underneath: topics, predicted protective audiences, and attribution reporting API. So everything started to work in a more, from the tech stack perspective, started to work more on an API basis, which makes and switches our marketing technology tech stack more from depending on cookie and ID based and device ID based setup to more API based, more settled setup in a way. So we are in the process of looking at our infrastructure and then redesigning it in a way which is imposed by the industry leaders like Google happening, This is the one angle on that one. And yeah, any other questions on that? I can continue.
Yeah, now we can go deeper on that, but maybe just like with staying high level on how to approach it and expectations on that. But yeah, for you right now, it looks like you're actively already thinking about the stack and the technology and how it might already change and affect due to the new APIs, right?
Of course. We started to look more server-to-server type of connections, API-driven, like attribution, like API-driven reporting models, which also Google proposes right now within the portfolio that they are proposing under Privacy Sandbox. So yeah, we are trying to build a roadmap, actually, having a roadmap to switch our course from more pixel or cookie-oriented or mobile ad ID-oriented type of advertisements to a more API-driven world.
Marcus?
I think it's a very, very complex topic, the privacy sandbox, and most probably, if you ask any marketer, it's something you feel always a little bit uncertain. What is that going to be? Where does Google stand at the moment, and so on and so forth. In all honesty, we are the same. We are majorly sticking to our measurement partner. I was mentioning that to Pan before this panel. I do believe that the measurement partners, they take an incredibly important role in all of these privacy discussion, because they help advertisers, especially smaller advertisers, to reduce complexity. And if you just read the documentations of Privacy Sandbox, it's just fucking complex to deal with that. And most probably in your day-to-day, you don't have really like the brain capacity to do so. So what we do, we work really closely with our measurement partner. I think maybe we are also a little bit in a favorable setup. We are not having, we are not supporting web conversions. We are app first. We want to get the people in the app. Everything that we are doing is trying to get them to the app as soon as possible. That has business related reasons, but also resource related reasons. So this is what we try to do. But in the end, our media mix is also not really set up in a way that it is heavily affected by Privacy Sandbox. So we are not entertaining DSPs, for example, at the moment. We're just sticking to the big players, Google, Facebook. This is what we're working in. They naturally do the adoption, from my perspective, on their side. They have to, because they have to secure also advertising revenue. And this is what we do. We basically stick to the MMP. We are in close contact there. Try to be updated. Try to do our homework. Update the SDK whenever we have to. Whenever there is something to update. But apart from that, like, we are not running crazy at the moment and trying to build projects where there's no reason, from my perspective, to build projects.
Yeah. I guess at
least from our marketing setup. That might be different to any of your setup, because you're maybe running DSPs, you do this and this, but our setup is different.
Yeah, I think like one of the big differences, just like being also in that situation of how ATT hit like the whole industry in parallel, right? The biggest difference for the sandbox is that like everybody, like every vendor, exactly like you said, also Facebook and Google, obviously, but everybody else, the MMPs, they are already working to support like Sandbox. Yeah, we have already like a team of 8 people in R&D and working on Sandbox already for over a year. So it's happening a lot of things in the background, just like to make the transition work. And I think that's a big difference for all the advertisers and marketers around there, because yeah, they can just wait how the tools are supporting like the whole setup, and hopefully then in the future you don't need really much, because the tools are just like you are using are kind of transitioning and then it works, right? But just like having said that, and still seeing that Google is very cooperative. We have weekly calls with Google which we don't have with Apple. Apple is like, we have maybe once a quarter or so, if at all. And they're also very secretive about like what they are thinking, what they're planning next in the next OS version, where it's exactly like, okay, right now you can see all the documentation, what they're planning, what is there. And yeah, I mean, they obviously in their situation where they are, they have to be a bit more collaborative with it. But the challenge is still getting the whole industry from one area to a very complex new one, right? Because the sandbox, when looking and comparing it with ATT setup or so, is much more complex, yeah? Because they try to also, okay, retargeting, re-engagement, make that work, right? Everything happens on the device. Data is not floating, but still able to do kind of, with a protected audience targeting. And also for us, like we need to update our whole tech stack somehow to make that work, which is quite a lot of investment, just like to maintain the budgets and revenues maybe going forward, right? But hopefully in the future, then you have a solid infrastructure, which is privacy friendly, which is scalable, right? Because then there is nothing like no consent discussion or so. You can just like, it's protected, it's safe. Data is not moving like from left to right between partners. So there are like some positive designs that can help just like make it much more scalable in the future based on that. Yeah, performance-wise, with less signals, okay, good. We have to see and test. But also more tools are available with all AI developments, machine learning infrastructures.
More controlled in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Way more controlled and way more structured, because although it is a refined set of data that now we are looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. Yeah, and we're also discussing, I think, like what Google is very open to look at is the balance between this heavy privacy development, where what Apple is just like putting in the forefront, saying privacy first, that's it. Yeah, and then we had the sessions earlier with all the like click spamming and everything, what everybody tries now to somehow exploit the whole Apple ecosystem to make it work, right? Which still happens, and whereas like then on the more structured approach from Google, where you have then just like a cleaner, scalable like environment, which hopefully, but yeah, that's the theory. Practically, it's like quite heavy, and let's see how it goes. And we see next year, I think also timeline for the whole app ecosystem. Next year, nothing is happening. Yeah, we can be quite sure about it. Yeah, we can maybe do the first test, but it's not like happening that the IDs are going away. So it's I think like kind of 100% sure they will stay and remain for next year. And then 2025, we will see. Yeah, they don't want to do a deadline like they do with the cookies, because cookies are going away next year. Yeah. So in October, likely. And they don't want to go away from that deadline anymore. Yeah, so that's going to happen. And then we can see how that will go, and then they want to learn also for Android. So yeah, being in the app first, an app first provider for Google might be a bit more beneficial right now, yeah, because it's like, okay, we see what how the others are going through the storm, and then we see how it was how it will be for us, yeah. And then we try also to be very close with Google and all the partners to exactly like implement all the things that are needed to make the transition smooth and good for all of us.